welcome to Marriage Masterclass. This is part 2 of our conscious communication series. And so before we begin, I want to remind you that the change begins with you. I know sometimes we want to change our spouse, but you know what? We can't change anybody but ourselves. So we want to focus on you, what you can do differently to change the dynamics in the relationship, okay? So let's get started. If you have not already downloaded your Marriage Masterclass worksheet, go ahead and download and print that so you can have that to review and take notes as we're going along. So we're going to start with number 1. What does communication really mean? So communication is communion. Communion. It comes from the word communion, which means to draw another into union with yourself. So we want you to, I want you to draw your spouse into union with yourself. And the word union is like, it means to be blended, to be unified, to be fused together. It means to be joined, all right? Just like in the Bible when the two were joined together and became one. So remember, communion is drawing your spouse into union with you, and that's what communication is all about. Now, connection. Connection fosters emotional intimacy and transparency. So connection is number 2. Connection is so important because it fosters emotional intimacy and transparency. And that is what you're going to need for a really good communication. You're going to have to be transparent and open with one another, and you're going to have to allow yourself to be vulnerable. Sometimes we have these walls that we build up and we have these layers with our spouse, and that actually keeps us distant and disconnected. And so we don't want to have that in the marriage. So here's my question for you. When you find yourself in conflict, when you find yourself at odds with each other, I want you to ask this question. Will this situation block our connection? All right? Will this situation block our connection? You don't want to do anything that's going to block the connection in the marriage, that's going to block the communion, your opportunity to draw your spouse in closer to you, unified, okay? And also ask yourself, flip it around and ask yourself the second question. Will the way I am communicating block our connection? All right? So ask yourself that question. Will the way I'm communicating right now block our connection? Those are 2 questions I want you to focus on because we want to be in communion with one another. Okay? So number 3, collaboration. Collaboration can help foster connection. Collaboration is the act of you and your spouse working together to produce or create something, okay? It's you and your spouse working together to produce or create something. And what's the core outcome of the conversation? I want you to start thinking and asking yourself, what is the outcome? What is the ideal outcome for this conversation with my spouse? And so for me, I want to always have an outcome that is peaceful for the both of us. For us to walk away closer to one another and empowered with a plan. I never want to walk away disconnected or disrespected. And I don't want my husband to walk away disconnected or disrespected. So you have to have a core outcome for the conversation. And that requires collaboration. You guys are going to have to start talking about the ideal outcome that we want for all of our conversation, the ideal feeling that we want to have when we finish talking to each other, when we're communicating with each other. What is the core feeling that we want to have that resonates in this conversation? Is it peace? Is it love? Understanding? Please discuss that with each other. Collaboration is so important. So think about the outcome and the work together to create that. Think about the outcome, and I want you to work together to create that. So moving right along to number 4, what does communication reveal about your marriage? What does our communication reveal about our marriage? Wow. Marriage is so revealing, all right? Marriage is so revealing. It exposes us. That's right, it exposes us. It exposes, marriage exposes our insecurities. It unearths our fears. Our fears are unearthed. Our intentions are exposed. So marriage is revealing because it just shows up and it just opens up our true selves. You know, because sometimes people say, "Wait a minute, who is this person I married?" Well, marriage is revealing. It shows our spouse who we really are. And last week I talked about character, because character shows people who we are. So marriage is very revealing. There's not too much that you can hide or conceal in a marriage because it will be exposed. So here's a question for you that I want you to meditate on. I want you to answer and on your sheet and think about it and discuss with your spouse. What does your communication reveal about your marriage? What does your communication reveal about your marriage? If you are at odds with each other, if you can't get a word in, if there's judgment there, if there is manipulation there, or love there, kindness, patience, your communication reveals so much about your marriage. So if you want to have the truth about your marriage, look at your communication. So ask yourself, what does our communication reveal about our marriage? All right? And remember, communion is the root word of communication. It means to draw another into union with you, okay, with yourself. And so are you drawing each other into a closeness, into a fusion with one another where you're united and have this emotional intimacy? That's what I want you to focus on. Countenance. Our last one is countenance and communication. Countenance is all about facial appearance, expression, mood, and character. What type of posture do you have when you're communicating with your spouse? What does your face say? And the face don't lie. The face don't lie at all. I mean, sometimes we can have these faces that just says it all. Sometimes we can have these looks that will just pierce and burn paper. So we have to be aware of our countenance in communication, our posture. Once again, I'm talking about how we show up for our marriage. And so the mood that you bring into the conversation, if you're already irritated and rubbed the wrong way, it's not going to be a productive conversation. For example, what's wrong with you? Nothing. Yeah, something is wrong with you. Nothing. You want to talk about it? No. Countenance, mood, facial appearances, character, expressions. Countenance and communication when it's a negative countenance, it can sabotage the conversation. It can just sabotage the marriage. And the more that we are not aware of our countenance and aware of how we show up in our posture, we will not grow and our communication will not improve. So remember, if you haven't already watched part 1, go back and watch part 1, because part 1 I talked about the importance of our character, and I talked about the importance of really connecting to the feeling. And you cannot do that if you are not aware of your countenance too, okay? Because this is when we're turning inward and we're focusing on ourselves and we're not pointing the finger at our spouses. We're going to make the change, right? Because you're here and you're watching this. And hopefully you can be an influence, a positive influence for your spouse to improve overall in the relationship, the communication, okay? So that is what you're going to do this week. So please print your masterclass worksheet, work through that. If you have any questions, please reach out to me. Send me an email. My email is right here on the screen, and I'll get right back with you. So next week, we go into part 3 of conscious communication. Thank you.